welcome to this terrific Tuesday edition of Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. It's just the top of the hour. I'm going to get the clock right today because Frank got really aggravated with me yesterday. Just past high noon Eastern here in New York. We are high atop Midtown Manhattan at the Newsmax headquarters, coming here as always from the Question Tequila Studios. And downtown, at the top of the show, the New York Stock Exchange continues to hold that 27,000 range, up about 50 this morning. We're waiting all this week for Friday. The GDP report will tell us a lot. I'm still thinking that Fed Chair Powell will cut rates by 25 basis points at the end of this month in July. Anything better than that, a cut by 50. If the GDP isn't great, I think the market will go higher, and it's been holding that 27 in consolidation for some time now. So 28,000 is right there on the horizon. We're keeping our eye on Iran, of course, because geopolitical news that tightens the Hormuz Straits could raise oil prices, which could be a little annoying to the market. But we'll keep you posted on that. And Bitcoin is taking a shellacking over the last 2 weeks after a huge run, up 50% from 8,000 to just over 13. It's come back to 10. We've been keeping our eye on that 10,000 level as a stabilization, a consolidation point. It's under 10. There could be a trapdoor. The next level of support is about 8,000. So stay very nimble if you're trading Bitcoin in the short term, and do not invest any money in Bitcoin unless you are prepared to lose every single cent. And every single cent of pay that I can possibly scratch together, I do. For my co-host and the managing editor, Frank Morano, joins me as usual. Good afternoon, partner. How are you?
Good afternoon to you, John, and those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to the rest of the country. And there are a ton of items in the news today. We're going to get to quite a bit of them. And here are a few that I'll be speaking frankly about. The Senate is expected to vote today to extend funding for the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund. The bill that was recently approved by the House extends funding for decades. The measure got a big push from New York firefighters, police, and former Daily Show host Jon Stewart. Stewart argued that lawmakers should be ashamed for lags in funding. President Trump is expected to sign the bill. The Trump administration is taking steps to make it easier to deport illegal immigrants who've been in the country less than 2 years. The Department of Homeland Security is expected to announce today that it's expanding expedited removal, giving authorities permission to detain and deport immigrants quickly without having them see an immigration judge. The expedited removal policy since 2004 applied to anyone detained within 100 miles of a U.S. border and arrested within 14 days of entering the country. The new policy will allow illegal immigrants captured anywhere in the U.S. within 2 years of entering the country to be deported without a hearing. And finally, the man who started a Facebook group inviting people to storm Area 51 is again reminding people that it's a joke. Nearly 2 million people have signed up for the tongue-in-cheek raid on the secretive military base out in the Nevada desert, hoping to, quote, see them aliens. But Matty Roberts told KTNV 13 in Las Vegas it started as a prank, but now he's worried some people might take it a little too seriously. Instead, he says he'd like to do something cool now that so many people are interested. Maybe something educational or artistic. So that's what's happening.
And Frank, when you do your Frankly Speakings, they're so great for me. I do very little homework before the show, so when I watch these, it kind of gets me up to speed on the news too. But thank you. You're the best. I just sit here. He does all the work, this guy, like a ton of work. But one of the things that's been really annoying me, Frankie, is the squad, the JV squad, screaming and yelling about these horrible conditions in the detention centers. For those of you watching at home, if you don't know this, there are a grand total of 50,000 people in detention in ICE and Customs and Border Control detention centers. Did you know that?
I did not.
Did you know there was only 50,000? I mean, it's not a great number. And out of that 50,000, only 900 are family units. So we're talking about, we want everyone to have humane conditions, but there are 1,000 family units that are in detention right now. And that's what AOC and the squad are focused on, that they have, this is from the federal government, 24 complaints lodged that were actually tangible and written up out of 50,000 people, which is 1/4 of 1% of all of those in detention totally are reporting that there's not enough water or the lights are on all the time. There was one, Frank, about a potential sexual assault out there. But my real question, and I wonder, is AOC and Ilhan Omar and all, they're all talking about these illegal immigrants who are in detention facilities, who came here knowingly they were going to be detained. And there's 550,000 U.S. citizens who are reportedly in the homeless situation across the country. So, number one, I would like to see our Congress people fight for the 500,000 Americans, and I would say 100% of them have no clean water or no shelter.
Well, of that 550,000 number or so, about 193,000 are streeted homeless. They're not in shelters. The rest are homeless, but they are in shelters.
So 200,000 people are actually living on the street.
You know, one of the things we found here in New York...
Some percentage of them are living on the street.
One of the things we found here in New York City, where Bill de Blasio has helped just explode the homeless population, is that it's very difficult to count homeless people. It's not as easy as people think. So these are all estimates, but
I counted about 400 from here to Grand Central Station, but yeah, it's difficult to count them because they don't have signs on I'm homeless.
Right.
But it's
They're not great with filling out sentences
that if they love America, why don't they put the same amount of fervor and zest into helping, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Her district boasts 13% of the people in her district are living under the poverty line. About 600,000 people in her district, which makes about 80,000 people in her congressional district that are under the poverty line.
Well, look,
how about fighting for them?
I don't have an interest in defending Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or any politician,
but you
really. No, but I think what she would say if she were here is that that's one of the reasons she fights for things like free health care for everybody, free shelter for those who can't afford it, and access to basic human needs so that people aren't living in the street dealing with things like mental health issues and drug addiction. I think that's one of the things that defines the whole socialist mentality.
We're going to do some more homework on this homeless situation. And let's not forget, probably a good portion, I'm going to get you the right numbers rather than guess, because Frank, you'll just make fun of me later for being wrong. But a big portion or some portion of them are veterans that, if nothing else, we should be taking care of our veterans who are homeless and mentally disturbed. And we're going to keep our eye on this situation for you. But one situation where I think we have some good news to report, Frank, is our efforts, along with Jon Stewart, he pitched in here and there, seem to have got the Congress and the Senate to finally agree on something, which is extending the Victims' Compensation Fund for 9/11 first responders.
Right. So the House has already voted to extend it. The president has indicated that he would sign it. But last week, when we thought the Senate was going to pass it, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul basically single-handedly stopped this. And Jon Stewart, a couple of days ago, had some pretty harsh words for Kentucky's junior senator. Take a look at this.
Pardon me if I'm not impressed in any way by Rand Paul's fiscal responsibility virtue signaling. Rand Paul presented tissue paper avoidance of the $1.5 trillion tax cut that added hundreds of billions of dollars to our deficit. And now he stands up at the last minute after 15 years of blood, sweat, and tears from the 9/11 community to say that it's all over now. Now we're going to balance the budget on the backs of the 9/11 first responder community.
I think he makes a pretty good point there. I mean, you can't say nothing when it comes to cutting taxes by $1 trillion, but when it comes time to providing for health care for people that are suffering from cancer because we were attacked on September 11th, that's when you become a fiscal conservative? Give me a break.
I mean, look, I've said this before. There are nary a few times that I've agreed with Jon Stewart. I think he's a comic genius. But usually I come down on the other side of the political equation with him, and I ring the bell when I agree with liberals and progressives, and Jon Stewart and I are on the same page as this. And as much as I crack down on congressional member Max Rose, he also had a hand in this.
Yeah, and so did the whole New York delegation. They all did a great job, Republican and Democrat. But the thing is, John, I do wonder, why do we feel the need to label people as progressive or socialist or left-wing or right-wing?
You say
everybody.
we. When you
Not
say
just
we,
you.
the royal,
No. I mean everybody. The media
I
in
feel
general.
a need to do it because I want to get TV ratings.
Well,
and I want to say outrageous things.
Does that help, though? I
think
wonder.
it helps.
I think
it helps.
I think the public.
People send me notes all the time and say, get them progressives, Johnny, get them libs.
But look, if you listen to Bernie Sanders on trade, he sounds a lot more like Donald Trump than he does Barack Obama.
Yeah.
If you listen to Rand Paul on the war in Iran, he sounds a lot more like, say somebody like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez than he does Mike Pompeo, right? So
it might be.
I think these left-right artificial barriers that we've created in the political dialogue, they're almost meaningless. I'd rather just take each issue on its own merits. Like, John, the issue that I ended off the Frankly Speaking with, which is that there are right now 2 million people prepared to storm Area 51 in Nevada, even though this is a joke. And people, I don't think, realize that this is a joke.
No, I think they know.
All 2 million?
Everybody was getting ready to storm Area 51 until the Face app came out, and then everybody forgot about the storming. But it would make it a lot easier for me to watch Rand Paul and listen to Rand Paul if you got rid of that perm. I mean, the hairdo's got to go.
It is an odd hair.
The 70s are calling. They want their hairdo back.
Although, John, to be
crazy.
In all candor, if I were in your position, I would avoid criticizing anyone.
All right. Well, listen, I'm missing hair. I'm not misusing hair. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to use whatever I can to cover up. And then my makeup lady does all these magic tricks for television to make it look like I actually have some hair. But if I had Rand Paul's hair, I'd wear it nicely.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward in the Mix It Up segment to hearing what our illustrious panel has to say about the hair of the new UK Prime Minister, Boris Johnson.
I love him.
Because if there's ever been a European leader that has Trumpian hairstyles, it's Boris Johnson. So that's going to be
no doubt.
That's going to be pretty interesting. By the way, we want to wish a very happy birthday to one great American and one great Canadian. The great American being Bob Dole, who, in addition to being a senator for a long time and a presidential candidate, served bravely in World War II. He's 96 years old today. And Alex Trebek, one of the finest Canadian game show presenters we've ever seen. It's his birthday today. He just had a battle with pancreatic cancer that he seems to be doing pretty well with.
That's fantastic. And even though I joke around about progressives and liberals, I'm an independent. And the one thing we do to demonstrate our bipartisanship every single day is we bring on a Democrat and a Republican. We throw out the topics of the day. I sit back, have a drink, let them fight it out. But one thing is for sure, all voices are heard. And when we're done, we got some thoughtful conversation without shouting and screaming, maybe once in a while. But John Burnett, Managing Director of Financial Historian, Mix It Up right after this.